Hello, everyone. It's Donna Cravata, and we're back with another Real 50 Over 50 interview. And today we have Kim Fuller. And Kim she's literally had her eye on evolving women for years. First as a mindful photographer, then a mindfulness and story coach. And then she shared the powerful story of adopting her son in an award-winning book and a TEDx talk. And it has all culminated in Born to Rise, where she created a platform for women to be vulnerable, share their stories on stage, in print, and in community. Welcome, Kim. I'm so happy to have you here.
Yeah, this is so fun. I'm honored, honestly. You've had such incredible women come to this platform so far.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It really has, and it's kind of taken on a life of its own, and I'm so happy to have you part of it because I know how important storytelling is to you and how um, it's just so immersed in everything that you do. And I think that what you have to share is really important, and more people need to know about you.
Thank you. Well, I think we have similar missions in that we really want to amplify the voices of women and bring us all together in community because we've seen the power of that. And storytelling has been a really fun way to do it, but also a powerful way to do it, more so than I ever could have imagined, which I'm sure you're finding with this project that you're
Yes.
working on. You have this spark or inspiration that comes from the universe and says, okay, you have to do this thing. You have no idea where it's going to go. And that's really what's been happening with this. But ultimately, it is about gathering in community, which women are so needing and wanting. And we do it well. We really do it well when it's done well. And so that's the exciting part of all of this. And the storytelling itself has just been enlightening, awakening, inspiring, hopefully empowering for the women, which is why I started it in the first place. And we can talk
Mhm.
about that. But yeah, it's amazing.
It is, and it's amazing. Like I've been to your events where you bring everybody together. I was at your festival, your storytelling festival, and it's like at the beginning of the day, everybody is just kind of like, getting a feeling of what's going on and a little tentative and what does all this mean? And there are all these things going on. But as the day progresses and the stories start coming out and unfolding, and I mean, you just see like this collective opening
Yeah.
where people really start to engage and connect on an entirely different level than
Yeah.
they had even an hour before. And that's just magic.
I've been reflecting a lot about who I am and how I come across and how I deliver and message around what I'm doing. And I realized that I often hear people come to the event and say, "Oh, I've seen this thing, but I really didn't know what to expect. But wow, am I glad I came." And so I realized like I'm not, and I'm not, this is not a put down on myself, but I'm a feeling person and I love experiential. But to describe what is happening is really a challenge because one, it's different every time, but two, you really do have to sort of feel it
Yeah.
to be in it. And so I'm constantly talking with my better writer friends and
Hmm.
saying, what are you seeing? What sounds right? What am I trying to say here? Because it's one of those things where you come and you're kind of like, what am I doing? What is my
Hmm.
story? What does it mean for someone else's story? What am I going to get out of this kind of thing? Because a lot of times when you're invited to something, it's your precious time, and
Hmm.
you want to be careful in what you choose because we all have busy lives, and so I'm grateful when people show up because I feel like even if it's five people, usually it's a lot more than that, but even if it is, I want that experience to feel really good and opening. And I'm glad that you said that it was because it is something that is gradual. Like awakening is gradual. Being alive in the world is gradual, right? We start as babies and we keep expanding. I want that expansion to continue past 50, past any age, which is what we're talking
Yes,
about here. Like
for
where do
sure.
we go from that time where we're doing all the doings and sort of the mothering and the mothering ourselves as well as going into schooling and then becoming a wife maybe or a partner and then maybe raising children and doing all the things. And then we have this time that arrives in our life where there's room for more expansion and growth, but it's not always grasped. like people don't always take advantage of that. And I feel like it's prime time to do it.
It really is, and, it we don't all for many of us, it's the first time we actually have the space to even think about things like this, you
Yeah.
know? It just there was never even time to consider it, and we have to put aside that, um, immediate like that immediate thing that everything has to happen now, 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 now that our community is based upon, and just kind of lean into it and letting it happen as it unfolds and as the story comes out, because like I know with the way that I work with clients, I come from storytelling from a different approach than you do. It's almost like let's reach back and pull together these parts that got you here.
Yeah.
So, because until that point, you're leaving things out, and like I watch them unfold through that, and it's it takes time, and it takes sometimes like there's pushback, like, "Oh, I don't wanna remember this," or, "I don't wanna go there," but you kinda have to, because you have to give yourself t the space to let go of the parts that you no longer need, so
Mhm.
you can move forward with this new version of who you are based on everything that you've accomplished and done in your life.
Well, I think for me, it's really this process. Even so, I started out as, and still am, a photographer, always doing portraits, and I love working with women. But I've seen them come in front of my camera with this intention to re-see themselves or feel more empowered, or maybe even find imagery that feels really good, that attracts the clients they want to attract. So
Mm,
they want to show up authentically, but they're not really sure what that even means.
yeah,
And then we start dancing and playing, um, and honestly, like part of the practice for me, and I know we're going to talk about my mindful practice, but mindfulness in that part for me is being present for how these people want and need to show up in front of the camera. And so that's been the origination of all of this work, right? And
mhm,
through my mindful practice and studying Buddhism and really getting into meditation and all of that for a couple years, and watching myself unfold and see, wow, there's more expansion even for myself here. And then having the challenging situation that I wrote about in my book. I never thought I'd write a book, right? But it was all being presented and it just kept unfolding and unfolding. And then being, able to have an opportunity to share a TED talk, that experience again, bringing in sort of like all my fears and my doubts and my I'm not enoughness,
mm,
stepping into that and saying, I want to expand. I want to keep expanding, and trusting that it was going to be okay, right? Like I can be a hot mess and it's still okay. I'm not, it's actually probably more attractive, that vulnerability. But then realizing how healing all of that was, the self exploration, the looking at other women, the challenging times in my life. And like you said, that all led to Born to Rise, which
yeah,
is now encompassing all of those things where women are. I felt that it was really important to, in that TED talk, to speak my story. So I thought I need to make this available for more women.
yeah.
So then it was the storytelling nights. And then it was like, well, let's have a festival and invite more creativity and other things that really push us a little bit to expand and explore and try and just see what happens, kind of thing. Like create possibilities wherever we can. Um, and now who knows what will come next. But um, I love offering, just spaces for people to try things out.
Yeah,
And in my case, it's public speaking, which is scary as all get out for most people, and standing in front of a camera, two really vulnerable things.
mhm, yep,
So my work is, obviously I have to work on myself enough to be able to hold that space for somebody. And then their work is to trust enough in themselves as well as the audience and me to say, I can do this. And I'm going to do it in a community of supportive women.
yeah,
It is powerful. It's powerful to go to these events. I'm literally just holding the space for it. I mean, it's really amazing who shows up, what they are willing to share, and the feedback they get.
yeah. I was blown away with your events, and then I'm blown away with doing these interviews because, I keep them very flexible, and it's more conversational, it's not very structured, and, people have shared things that they've never shared before.
Yeah.
And there is something special about being the person that holds all of that, that and connects the people, and like there's like this almost like a traffic cop of emotions, you know.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, like, I think one of the most important pieces about being in service, which we're, a lot of the women in your interviews have been, is the self-care piece and the part, and this is where my practice has been super important. Because, a friend of mine, says to me sometimes, like, you help everybody else. Are you taking care of yourself? And I am. And it's actually a priority. And it's something that I value and have valued pretty much my whole life, honestly. Like, I've always been an exerciser. And then once I discovered, sort of mindful activities like meditation and things, trying to weave that in as much as possible into my life, because I couldn't do this work without that for myself. I also know in human design, I'm a manifester. So
So
know, yeah, I need a lot of space. And so it's important for me to take walks and have nothing going on, where I can simply mentally create and let things come in that need to come in. So I think, at this stage of my life, the wisdom that I have around even just that piece has
mhm,
been, um, you know, paid attention to.
yeah,
Like, I listen to that
yeah,
because it is but I also enjoy holding the space. I'm in awe, right? And I think being in awe in life in general really makes your life pretty rich. So keep being in awe. Like, how good does a sunset and a sunrise feel? Because we're in awe, right? So if we can stay in that place of being in awe of one another and curious of one another and interested enough, I
mhm,
think it bridges the gaps that we have, or the divides, and it helps us be more empathetic and kind and loving and respectful of what people are navigating all day long.
yeah,
Because we don't need to know it. Like, I don't need to know that you have this, that, and the other thing going on in order for me to say, I'm going to be kind to you today because there's probably something.
yeah.
And so, yeah,
We're all juggling a lot, and um, I also think at this age where it's very tender because we're reinventing and we're figuring things out again for the first time because the kids have gone off, the parents have passed away or moved on or done something, and businesses have changed, relationships have changed, and we really are starting over again. And I think that doing this in community is really important
yeah,
because for many of us, the first time we did this, we didn't have this kind of support.
right. It's funny to think it takes this long to get there.
Yeah. Well,
But part of what I hope is that our generation, being that this is what we're talking about here, um, that I'd like to be able to inspire younger women and have that's one of the bridges that I'd like to divide, is that, as we know, the world is changing fast through technologies and the ways that we socialize and all of those things. So we don't want to have too much of a gap between the way we all communicate, because I think communication is so important. Obviously sharing stories is a form of communication, but if we can learn to communicate in some way that feels universal,
mhm,
beyond all the social media and the texting and whatever ways that, I even look at my mother, who has, done very well with technology, but does not communicate that way typically. And so
mhm.
how do we keep these wonderful relationships going, with strong communication? And I do feel like a lot of it comes through hearing each other's stories and realizing that we're human underneath all of that stuff.
Yeah, it really does, and I have, gotten a lot of, comments and emails from younger women who are really appreciative of these stories because, no we're really sharing this stuff that nobody told us, you know?
Yeah,
Like, don't wait till you're 50 something to figure this stuff out. You can do this in your 20s and your 30s.
yeah.
And I also really feel like at the age that we're at is we've got a responsibility because the world that we grew up in isn't going to exist anymore. For much of it doesn't already. And like there are things that need to stay. That granted, a lot of it needs to go, but
Well, even the word mindfulness. Like we didn't
Yeah.
even talk about that back in my childhood because we were mindful. We were already mindful. We would, I mean, I remember days, or I shouldn't say days. I would sit on a curb when I lived in Florida outside the front of my house and just literally draw my finger in the sand. Like, because I didn't have anything going on, my friends weren't around. I would just sit and it was perfectly fine. But it's, if you think about that, like, it's a mindful activity that I doubt any kid is doing these days unless they live somewhere where there's absolutely no technology. But
Yeah, I mean, my son, he was class of 2020, so he took the first semester off of college because, like, the colleges did not have this down yet, and we both agreed, like, we didn't need to be the test pilots.
yeah, so it's,
So, but after, like, the day that came when, like, all the friends went off and nobody was around, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he comes out and he says to me, "This is the first time I can remember where I had absolutely nothing to do and nowhere to be."
yeah,
And he really needed it, and, like, if it was not for COVID, he wouldn't have had that period.
yeah,
I don't think that he would have been happy in that first semester at school. I think he would have had a real struggle because, he needed that space.
yeah, yeah. My son was fine through it as well. He was a college age student at that time.
Mhm,
I think he needed that space as well because there's a lot of overwhelm. There's a lot of overwhelm in the world. We're just bombarded constantly with things. And
mhm,
again, I go back to that self-care piece. Like, what do you need? Like,
yeah,
some people thrive on a lot of chaos and
mm,
activity and constant this, constant that. But I know for myself, like I said, like I need space and quiet. Like I can't work with a lot of music on or distraction, whereas some people thrive on that. They like five or six things going on at once because their brain is wired that way. And I don't think either is right or wrong. It's just, how do you like to function? But bottom lining, are this the stuff we do every day is just stuff we do every day. But how do we want to feel underneath it all is really the piece that motivates me. And
mhm,
I think when we can talk about that and look at it as part of our story or our narrative that we carry, that's what drives us throughout the day and
for sure.
who we are, right? So where do we want to start? Like, if we want to set an intention every day that kindness is going to be my driver, that
Mhm,
empathy is going to be my driver, that, not the, oh, I have to do this, that, and the other thing, or I've got to go run this errand, but even with that, can I be kind running my errands? Can I be kind working at my desk? Can I be kind talking to my friends? So, it's like getting underneath it all and finding out how you want to be, I think can happen at any age. And it's something that I thoroughly encouraged in my children.
yeah,
Even when they were like getting bullied at school or something, or there was a kid that they thought was being a bully, I would say, just be careful because you don't know what's going on with that child at home. They could be having some serious trauma and they don't know where to let it out. And that's
yeah,
not to say to put yourself in harm's way, but be kind.
yeah.
Even when they're being a bully, be kind, right? And they've lived by that for the rest of their lives and they're all grown now, and I really feel like I've raised kind people.
Mhm,
We
yeah,
need more of that.
yeah, yeah. I'm quite happy with the one I raised too.
Yeah, yeah,
He,
well,
like, I when I was a kid, I was not raised with any religion, and, what I just needed something to believe in, like, I didn't know what I believed in, so I created doing something. I must have been 7 or 8 years old, and I just said, "Every day, I'm gonna learn something new, and I'm gonna help somebody, and my day is not done until I do those 2 things," and I've done this my whole life, and I taught my son how to do that too, because, like, I didn't raise him with any religion or any faith-based anything, but we went by that, and we went by, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you start to feel out of balance, look at the people around you
yeah,
and get rid of the ones that are putting you out of balance.
yeah, yeah,
And
no,
that's and be curious. Like, every time I, like, sign a card to him or we get off a call or something, I always tell him, "I love you and be curious."
that's
Mm,
great.
because, I mean, if you are curious and you've got an open mind, like, I mean, I really believe that possibilities are just all around you. They're,
That's
like, circling around you, and if you're in tune to that, there's always something new that's going to happen. There's some new relationship or opportunity or experience that's just right there within your reach. But if you can't see them because you closed your eyes, they're not there anymore. They're somebody else's.
And I think that can really apply the piece about being curious. I love the term radical curiosity.
Mm,
Even if you skew towards seeing the negative before you see the positive, and that's usually people's makeup or whatever, I think you can still, like, even when you see something that's bothersome or you're negative, you can still say, well, what's possible. And I think that's a healthy version of the negative view, because you're someone who maybe is a little more aversive to the world, if you will. Like, I hate people, everyone's an idiot, blah, 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 like that. And then there's people like me, it's like, oh, people are great, I get which both can be in a bad state if you're not careful. One's like too la la and one's too angry, right? But if you're in a healthy version of it with curiosity, right? If you add curiosity on top of both of those, they can be both very good qualities, because obviously a person who skews towards the negative or aversive qualities, they're going to find the problems in the world, and then with the curiosity, fix them.
yeah.
With somebody who's like, la la la, gonna make the world beautiful, when you stay curious, you're going to actually learn about people, and you'll find ways to make the world more beautiful. It won't just be like a hopeful, wishful thinking kind of mindset. So I love radical curiosity.
Mhm.
Possibility, like you mentioned, in both types of people.
Mhm.
Those are the healthy versions when you add on the curiosity and the version of like open mind and possibility. So that's one thing I love, is like not putting anybody down for who they are, because we're skewed, right? We've had influences, but there's healthier versions of those states that we can cultivate, which is what I love. Like, we don't want to walk around in the I know I do, like, la la la, I'm the la la. But I also know that I have to be careful with that, because then you might be a wishy-washy or a
Mm,
little bit of a doormat or whatever. So just, being watching the story I'm telling myself, what does that come with? And being curious, and then looking for that possibility. Great
yeah.
points.
Yeah, it's all right there. So we had a comment here. Mary Beth was asking about how you find out if you're a manifester.
I was actually at a workshop where somebody was talking about human design, but it's called human design, and they actually have tests right online. So if you Google human design, I'm sure a bunch of stuff will come up about how you can test yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll find a link later, Mary Beth, and I'll put it in the comments too. But there are links where you can do this online and take the test, and then there are like books and podcasts that you can listen to that go a little deeper into it. And then if you wanted to go more into it, there are people that actually help you do this. But it's just an interesting way to see the way you operate.
Well, apparently the what this woman was explaining was that if you know that about yourself, it helps you understand the ways that you best work. I kind
Hmm.
of already knew how I best worked, but the manifestor label just kind of made it clear, I guess. But I've always known that I've needed a lot of creative space. And then they call that the manifestor, so as part of the trait. But I guess for some people, who get frustrated with maybe being unorganized or this, that, or it can help them see what the best way is for them to work, how they will best organize their day.
Yeah. And yeah, good question. Thanks.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this for a moment. Let's talk about the intersection of confidence story and being a badass.
You came up with this. I'm going to have to think about this for a minute.
Well, I just went around your website and picked up some words.
Well,
They were all on there.
I mean, I'm a self-proclaimed badass. Like, and
Mhm.
I say that because I am confident. I think I've always. I don't know why. I was actually. I think about weird things at night when I'm going to sleep, which probably a lot of people do. But I was thinking about confidence last night, and it's like, what makes one person confident? I mean, I feel like I've been confident since I was a very young kid. I cut all my hair off. I didn't give a poop about what everybody else thought about my hair. I cut it like a little boy. I looked like a little boy. I didn't care. It's what I wanted. I used to wear funky clothes even back in the day, whatever. But so I was confident in that way of self-expression, I guess. So that's why I say, like, I'm a badass. And I also feel like I'm I'm a step in fully kind of person because I am curious and I want to expand and grow, and I know that that's how I do it. Um, and that does take courage, and I know that
Yeah,
takes courage. So,
it
um,
absolutely does. Now, how do you see it, like, either through the lens of your camera or when you're producing a show or being a curator of a book of stories? Like, how do you see the women that you work with transform as they step into their confidence, as they share their story,
maybe
as they own their story?
yeah, I mean, all women are badasses. Look what we do. I mean,
Yeah,
we're raising humans. We birth a human.
birth,
That's just do
oh my
that.
god.
I don't care if you don't even birth a human. Living with periods your whole life, you're a badass. Like, I mean, there's just so many things that make us
Yeah,
badasses,
yeah,
and I think it's important to claim that and say, look what I'm navigating all day long, and I'm still standing. Like, we are resilient, beautiful beings. Men are too; they're very resilient as well. But because we're speaking about what we're speaking about, let's stick with badass women. We are doing some great stuff in the world, and it's stuff that I think is, heart centered and real and important. We're not about wars and battles and power. I mean, we certainly can have some of that going on, but we do it very differently. Um,
exactly. I I
so
I
I,
was just thinking of the term productivity, right? So, like, I think of how a woman handles, like, being a consultant around productivity versus how a man does it, because it's
yeah,
just like it's
yeah,
totally different.
yeah. And my work to me to have a woman feel empowered, by the way, is to not do all the doings with resentment or like, oh God, I have to, or shame or guilt or other things. I want women to do the things they do because they're amazing at it. I don't care what it is. Like, even if it feels like it's the smallest thing, do it with gusto and own it and claim
Mhm,
it and say, I am a badass at quilting, or
mhm.
whatever it is, getting socks and collecting them and donating them. Be a badass with it. Like, just claim that shit. Excuse me,
Yeah,
but I get frustrated because it's important, and if we don't see ourselves as badasses, we just get really small.
yeah,
And women should not be small or play small, because if we can't do it on our own, damn well going to do it in community, I'll tell you that much. So gather your friends.
yeah.
One of the things that happened to me many years ago, which started a lot of my whole story with my adopted son, for example, is I was working on a project, photographing some group homes that Child and Family Services wanted to introduce to the community so people could start volunteering and sort of adopt a home, one of the homes. Well, I saw one of the homes. I thought I could adopt a home. And I put together 10 women because I knew I couldn't do it on my own. Like, I wasn't going to do this project on my own. So I got together 10 women friends, called them all up, and said, let's adopt one of these homes. We can each do a little bit, and it'll
Mhm,
make a great whole.
mhm.
And it was an incredible year. And that's where I met my third child, was at this home. But the point of that really is that we shouldn't look at ourselves and say, I need to do it all, because
Mm,
we know how good women are in community. And we have those friends in our lives that can support us and help us, but we have to ask. And that makes us a badass, right?
yeah,
That's a badass move. Ask for help.
for sure.
And whatever story you're telling yourself about that needs to go to the wayside, because asking for help is not weakness or anything. It's about community and gathering. And I'll tell you what, when you ask someone for help, that empowers them beyond belief. And so that's to me, the confidence and the story and the badassery all in one. And it's empowering.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, Kim. Yeah, and
Yeah, thank you for the comments. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, we don't need internal messages like, "Oh, I'm not enough."
yeah, no,
I
it
have.
doesn't help.
I'm not saying I don't have them, but I think where the mindfulness comes in and the badassery is, I kick myself in that badassery and I say, "Cut it out.
Cut it out, yeah.
That is not a true story.
Mhm,
That is a belief. Who knows where it came from, but there's no reason to believe it. Look at
yeah,
all the things you've accomplished in your life. that you know were challenging. You can
Exactly.
do this.
Yeah. It's time to ditch that story and create a new one
Yep.
and believe it and actually believe it, because I think people do that too, is they'll rewrite a story, but they don't believe it. And then it doesn't matter.
And I sometimes wonder about that too. Like, why don't we believe it? Like, where is that? What is that divide there? And I'm really curious about that. Like, I even say that to myself when I write something down. I'm like, why don't I believe that this is actually true? And it makes me think that I'm on the wrong path. I'm
Hmm.
in the wrong direction. That's that's a key for me. I don't know if that's true for everyone, but even writing something down and going like, uh, is that a fear, or is it something I really don't want to do or go towards? And why is that? And what is that? Because it might just be the wrong thing.
Hmm. But it just could be a thing. Like when I started this, I'm sitting here getting ready for my first interview, half hour to go, like get an email from the woman who I'm interviewing, interview number one. She can't make it because her dog was like really sick. Turns
Oh,
out her dog died
oh
like right before our first interview. And I called up a friend of mine. I was like, okay, now what do I do? She goes, I'm interviewing you. I was like, oh, okay.
but I bet, but here's where I go is like, I bet you wanted to be there for that interview. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, if you had gone on that interview and like, oh, I don't know if I really want to do this. It just feels hard. Blah.
You know, this is the thing. If this was 10 years ago, I would have just said, that's a sign, that's a message. I'm not supposed to do this. And I would have canceled the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I was just sitting there like thinking, I just needed somebody to think out loud with. So I
Yeah.
reached out to my friend and she had the answer. And like this like speaks to the whole badass community thing because, you know, she helped me come to that solution in a minute. You know, for me, I was stuck in, oh my God, I hope she's okay, worried about her dog. What am I going to do? I only have 30 minutes. You know, I'm in the logistics of everything. And she's like, she wasn't in the middle of that. So she was just like, I'll interview you. I was
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
let's do it. She goes, give me 10 minutes. I'm like, that's all you got.
And, and that's part of being a badass too, is just trusting your instincts and your intuition, because I think it can be so prevalent. And if you're not in tune with that, take time to really sit quietly and get in tune with it, because it can be really loud and clear. I think even at this age, or over 50, I've noticed it being stronger and stronger and stronger. I'm hearing my intuition a lot more and listening to it. Because I think we're so busy and doing in our younger years that maybe it's not as loud, but it's getting louder, and I just follow more what it's telling me. There's something guiding me a lot of times that I don't even feel like I have to work at creating. It's just giving me information all the time,
Yeah.
and so it's like following those little nuggets of wisdom that drop in, or that if I get quiet enough can really hear what they're saying. And I think a lot of what I've done in the last 8 years has come from that place.
Hmm.
When I first, like I said, met the Dalai Lama and had this moment of like pure love when I shook his hand, and opening. There was some sort of opening that happened there. This state of pure presence, if you will, and then playing with that, saying, "Wow, what's possible in that space?" You
Mm.
know, and just really just exploring it all. It's just really been fascinating. But I think the more we open and be present, we can hear those instincts and
Yes,
intuitions come in.
I agree 100%. I used to be afraid of it and I didn't know what to do with it. And
Yeah.
I would try and hide it, but you can't hide
Yeah. I know.
it.
I don't know why we're so fearful in the world. I mean, fear is often, it's a survival instinct, obviously, but, um, you know, I think it started back when we had tigers and lions and
Yeah.
bears,
Yeah.
taking us down. But it's like, what are the fears we have now are so self-inflicted a lot of times. And often if we weren't supported as a young person or whatever, told we weren't enough, then, that's a tough thing to shake off. But
Mm.
hopefully we can, especially at this stage in life, say, that's not mine. That's
Yeah.
that's not mine.
Yeah.
That's not me. That's somebody else's baggage.
Yeah.
And is this fear really mine? And what is it I'm afraid of? And can I shake it off and see that I'm actually enough, or I'm plenty worthy of doing this, or deserving, even like I'm deserving, you're deserving, we're deserving of the things that we create for ourselves
Yeah, and for others.
and for others, of
Yeah,
course. Yes.
yeah. Well, this is amazing. Now, this has been like so packed with wisdom, but at the end of these interviews, I do like to ask for a wisdom bomb to leave people with. So, got anything?
I'll just say what I'll just say what has worked for me. um, I think being present and open to possibility, which we discussed, remembering that in particularly in situations and relationships that are super challenging, when someone is having a difficult day, or you're navigating a challenging, maybe your parents are aging, or your child's having a tough time, is to just be present and hold space for yourself and them without any need to fix anything, but to just be aware of what's unfolding and do your best in every moment, moment to moment to moment. You don't need to project out or fix the problem, or just sometimes it's just a matter of showing up and being present moment to moment.
That's great. That's great. Doable, actionable advice. And Kim's website is borntorise.live. And you can go there and find out about all of the different events, workshops, other offerings that she has. I know you offer all types of different events throughout the year.
Well, story
Mm,
retreats, story coaching for speakers or business women,
mhm.
workshops and stuff at facilitating and keynote speaking for companies and organizations. So lots of ways to get my wisdom.
Or get your photos.
Yeah,
But thank you for joining us today, Kim. This has been such a treat. And please connect with Kim if you're watching this on the replay. Tag us in any comments or questions that you have, and we'll come back and we'll keep the conversation going. So
thanks, guys.
thanks, Kim, and have a great Wednesday, everybody. We will see you back here next week.